4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to 755 is Real. I'm David O'Brien, Braves writer for The Athletic. How y'all doing, man? I'm with my co-host, Eric O'Flaherty, former Braves reliever. What's going on, Eric?
Nothing. Friday morning. I think we're leaving town tonight.
You're leaving town tonight?
Maybe. I told my wife, she always asks if we can go on trips. I'm like, I'm not going to plan it, but if you book something, I'll drive. So we'll find out in about an hour.
Well, I'm on your time, man, so it's early.
Yeah.
Not that early. Not, 10 o'clock now, so. But I've been doing a lot of crack research, so I've been up a long time here.
Crack research?
Research and crack.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's not good. The Braves are about to tee it up on the most important trip. I know we've said that a few times, but there have been some most important trips previously. This is the one now that becomes the most important because of where they sit in the standings and how little time's left. Obviously, you can't really afford to fall on your face if Philly or even New York, if one of them happens to get hot for a week, you could find yourselves looking up again in the standings. So the Braves can't really afford to slip any more than they have. The lead is still 3 games over Philly. I mean, they're still relatively comfortable with 19 games left, but losing back-to-back games against the Rockies didn't help. I know the Rockies are playing a lot better, but still, you lost both games against the Rockies in the series this week, and then you had Thursday's game rained out. I tell you what, I think that rain out, not being able to play a sloppy field.
I was thinking the same thing.
I think it's going to help the Braves catching their breath before they start. They were in a stretch of 13 games in 13 days, plus the suspended game they have to finish. So that kind of gave them a quick chance to catch their breaths and also to skip the 5th starter this weekend against the Giants. Don't have to turn to Smiley or Tukey or Kyle Muller or whoever it was going to have to be Sunday. Instead, the Braves going to got their best 3 pitchers going against the Giants.
I was thinking too, just getting out of town earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know what time they canceled the game.
Yeah, it was early.
A lot of times that helps you get over to the West Coast. It's a long flight. I think it's about 3.5, 4 hours from there. So you wind up getting into town with time to eat some dinner versus, a normal game. It can really drag and catch up with you, but it was a day game. Either way though, just getting out of there quick's nice.
Yeah. They were out of there by early afternoon though.
Yeah.
They pushed it back to like 2 and finally they just banged it. And so I would imagine they got on the road by 3:30, something like that instead of 7 or whatever. So, yeah, the flight's closer to 4.5 to San Francisco. LA, it's a little shorter, but it's a commercial. At least it's like 4.5 to here. Coming from Atlanta. But
yeah, I mean it's a long trip too to the West Coast.
Yeah,
this late in the year, they just came off a West Coast trip. I mean, this will be a tough push for them, but
so.
Got to make it happen.
Phillies
are scaring me a little bit with the way Harper's swinging the bat.
Yeah. Harper's playing great lately. He certainly is strengthening his bid for MVP.
Yeah,
his numbers are getting up there pretty good. The only thing he doesn't have is RBIs, and they're coming up a little bit too. But the rest of his stats are really strong. So
yeah,
and Riley has slipped a little bit in the last few weeks. Freddie's numbers aren't quite where they were. So it's going to be interesting. I think those two were, not leading candidates anyway, but they had a shot, but they've slipped. They've slipped as far as from what I could tell, listening to people, talking to people, sounds like Tatis still is a front runner, but Harper's put himself right there with him.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Braves were able to push back Ian Anderson. Instead of going Thursday against the Rockies, he'll now go in tonight's series opener here in San Francisco. So that's good. They're going to be able to go against the Giants here on their turf with the Braves' best 3 pitchers going. So it's going to be interesting. Charlie going Saturday, Max Fried going Sunday in the series finale. These are going to be some good games, I think.
Going to be good games. I think the most fun series I ever played in, well, I didn't get to play, I was hurt, but ever watched or was a part of was that 2010 series we played at San Francisco and then brought it back, the playoffs when we brought it back to our place. But They were doing something with they had the music locked in. The fans were going crazy. Lincecum struck out like
Oh, they were
15
going nuts.
against us. It was probably the best baseball atmosphere I've ever seen.
Brian Wilson closing.
Yep.
Yeah, when he entered, that whole thing, jump around playing when Brian Wilson his face up with the beard up on the big
Yep.
screen. That I agree. It was so charged. God, it was a lot of energy in this ballpark.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this will be the first time I've been out here with them good again
Yeah.
in a few years, because
Yeah.
it really got pretty, she still got the most beautiful ballpark in the baseball, but the crowds were about half the size they were in those days, and they just weren't energized because the Giants haven't been good. So from what I understand, they're pretty close to getting back to being close to full again. And you've seen on TV against the Dodgers, a couple of these games it's been electric
good.
here again. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that for sure. These guys are obviously still playing for plenty. I mean, they want to hang on and win the division. They've led it all year. So they've done a good job of holding off the Dodgers. Every time you think that the Dodgers are going to get hot and catch them, the Giants have a great stretch, a great series, and they're still there.
1-game lead.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so they're going to get the Braves are going to see their best. I mean, they're playing. They got everything on the line here. They don't want to play that wild card game.
Nobody wants to play that wild card game.
Nobody.
Anything can happen.
Nobody except the teams like the Reds, who are, know they're not going to win the division and are trying to get in. They would love to get in the wild card game.
And I think that plays in your favor. I feel like, if the Cardinals get in, I don't care who's pitching against them or what's happening. Like, I'd bet on the Cardinals to win somehow because they always seem to do it. But I think it works in the team's favor that doesn't necessarily deserve to be there. Like if you wind up playing the Dodgers and they win 99 games or something like that, and you cruise in with 84.
Yeah.
It's like you got nothing to lose. You're playing with house money. And for them, it's like we just put together this great season. There's a lot more pressure on them to win that game.
No doubt. I mean, the Dodgers are good enough they would win it anyway because they're pitching. But yeah, some teams get in there and go, we did all that for this. We got to play these guys, this crappy team, before we have to use one of our best pitchers before we actually open the postseason with the series. Yep. And then before you know it, they're down 3-0 in the second inning of the wild card game.
Yeah.
That's all it takes, man. One bad inning early in a wild card game. And it's like, then you're playing the rest of the game going, oh my God, we just played 162 games and it's over because our pitcher had a bad inning.
Or somebody made an error,
or,
our infield fly thing happened, which sucked, just shit like that.
Oh,
anything can happen in one game.
That night, God.
I mean, starters take losses. Scherzer's not undefeated, stuff like that happens, but
I'd like Wainwright in a wild card game. I'd like his chances.
Yeah, I think he'd show up.
Been there a few times.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you look at what Wainwright and Charlie Morton are both doing. Two of the best pitchers in the league this year. And Wainwright's 2 or 3 years older than Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
Wainwright's 40.
Yeah.
Charlie's be 38. And both still have great stuff. Charlie obviously throws about 7 miles an hour faster than Wainwright, but Wainwright's got that nasty curveball.
Yeah. I mean, that thing's always played. I see Freddie aging like those guys. They're not big, bulky dudes. They're flexible and athletic. But that's kind of when I look at Freddie and see how I think he's going to age. I think he's going to age kind of like Charlie and Wainwright.
Yeah, Charlie and Wainwright even have the same bodies. I mean, they're almost identical. They're like 6'4", 6'5", lanky guys, long arms.
Freddie too.
Yeah. For a first baseman, he sure is. So for what it's worth, everybody, is dumping on them, losing 2 to the Rockies, but the Rockies have been a terrible team on the road most of the year, but they're playing a lot better in September, man. The games don't mean anything, but they're actually playing better. They're 8-6 in September, 6-1 on the road. And that includes going to Philly and win 3 out of 4 against a Philly team that's playing for its playoff life. So they beat Phillies 3 out of 4. Then they took 2 from Atlanta. So they got to be feeling good about how they're finishing at least. But I sure had written them off. I mean, you thought we were just going to roll over them in the road.
Well, I'll tell you what game they're not going to bring their A game is if they have to fly back out to Atlanta at the end of the season.
The day after the season. Can you imagine?
They'll have their apartments packed and you fly all the way across. Your numbers everything's there. How you did, and just go play a game to you that's meaningless. I mean, it'd take a good manager to get his boys motivated to try to crush some dreams in that game, because they're a 1-game series on the road is tough to get up for.
Yeah, as bad as that rainout was, and as much as you'd want, the Braves to not have to play that game by having a big enough lead,
Yeah.
it could have been so much worse if the game had been in Denver and the same thing happened. Because then the Braves would be flying to Denver to play the day after the season ended, trying to get into the playoffs. It would have been awful. And then they'd have to go
in. You got to go somewhere else.
Right from there to somewhere else. So,
yeah.
So as it works out, I mean, it's really not that. If the Braves had to play it, they're at home. The Rockies are going to have to come to them. And then the Braves are going to be going from there. They'll still have another day before the division series starts, I think. But
yeah, you want to know how it's going to turn out. You'd like to have that game in the books already. But, I mean, if they wind up getting a free off day before a West Coast trip, and if the Rockies have to come back out the last day of the season, and the Rockies might have to, if it comes down to that, they might have to sit around their clubhouse and wait and see if they're playing tomorrow type of deal. Their minds are going to be, they're going to be checked out.
Imagine guys that are going to be like free agents and everything. This is your last game with the Rockies, and you're going to fly to Atlanta to play a game. But the Braves, of course, hope that it's not necessary. If they have a game and a half lead, then they're not going to have to play that game.
Right.
They would have to. They would just finish the season with 161, which it would suck if Duvall had 39 home runs. Or someone else had, just short of 100 RBIs or something. You don't get to play that game, but hey, it happens. I mean, it's pretty common for teams to only finish with 161 games or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, odds are for me it's not going to matter. But if you had to have an extra game, that's pretty much best case scenario. Just be playing a team that's out of it and their season's wrapped up and they have to fly, a couple hours just to have one game set with you.
And I think, Snit said, they played Wednesday night in a steady drizzled rain. It was bad. The whole game was bad. And they've had to put all the diamond dry down. They did it like 4 times during the game. They brought the tractors out at one point during the game and did the whole infield during the game. But Snit said they still made the right decision because at the time the forecast was for just as bad the next day. So if they had not played Wednesday night, there was a chance if the forecast held, they wouldn't get but one game in. Then you would be screwed, So at least they got the game in, and there's no way they had of knowing how bad the rain was going to be the next day and try to play 2 on getaway day. Plus they'd have been playing 2 games on getaway day before coming out here. So, I agree with them. They did the right thing, even though it was a sloppy field that night. They could not play yesterday. He said it was because the field was so soaked and saturated from the night before. They put the tarp down overnight. Field really couldn't dry at all, because it kept raining. And today when they put more diamond dry down, or yesterday, more diamond dry on top of that, he said there was no base. It was just like mud underneath. So once you got through that diamond dry, he said it was like it would have been like playing on a beach. Yeah. And then underneath is just mud. Then they would have been worried about guys getting hurt.
Yeah, and that's a nightmare. Big leaguers are used to such nice fields.
Yeah.
That's why those Latin shortstops are so good, because they grow up playing on terrible fields.
Yeah.
But I think once big leaguers get comfortable with those predictable hops, you throw them on a sloppy infield. it just could turn into an ugly game, and guys can get their footwork messed up and hurt something. So I think they played it right.
Yeah, it's funny. You talk about that. People don't realize how pristine major league fields are. And I'm reminded of it every spring when like a guy will have a couple of errors in a game or something, and Snit or someone else will talk about how bad the infields are at spring training because they get baked in the sun and all that. Because the average person looking at the field at spring training would go, oh my God, that's beautiful. It's like so much better than our high school field or, the college field I played on. They all look the same to them. Yeah, but it's that subtle difference is so obvious to a major leaguer to
that little bit, man.
Because the conditions are so perfect. Yeah, the best groundskeepers in the world.
It's all perfect.
Like golf courses, like the major golf courses, the difference between those and Muni courses,
Yeah, it's like a Ferrari, from a Kia to a Ferrari when you go from the minor league fields to the major league fields.
You don't have to worry about bad hops for the most part in the infield on the major league fields. Sometimes it'll hit the lip or whatever, but not very often. So by the way, the Phillies, they lost yesterday. They keep doing the Braves favors. But they lost a game. They're the first NL team in the modern era to trail by 7 runs in a game, but end up winning by 9. I said they won. I shouldn't say they lost. They won that game
Well,
yesterday.
they won.
Yeah, against the Cubs. The Cubs lost 17-8 in a game. They led the Phillies 7-0 and lost 17-8. That's
Oh,
amazing.
God.
Phillies are first NL team in the modern era to trail by 7+ runs in a game and end up winning by 9+. Anytime you're the first in the modern era to do something like that, I mean, that's
Well, normally once you're down 7-2, you start bringing in the B squad, out of the pen. You're not. It usually just gets bigger because you're kind of almost throwing up the white flag and planning on having your horses ready for tomorrow. So, but yeah, that doesn't happen too much.
And if it had been an normal expanded roster before, with the 35 guys on it or whatever, you'd have been seeing all those guys pitch for them.
Yep.
But yeah, the Phillies pulled that off. So they got gained a half game on the Braves yesterday when the Braves didn't play. I thought the Cubs had been playing a lot better too.
Yeah.
But man, that'll set you back losing that game. Jeez. Braves. Here's a stat that's a little troubling. Oh, I was thinking about that. Have you watched this Mets thing, the 30 for 30 yet? The 4-part?
I'm going to.
Oh my God. You got to watch it. Do yourself a favor and watch it on ESPN Plus, because as far as I know, they've kept in the F-bombs on there. And I watched it last night again on ESPN because I had it on in the hotel. They cut out all the F-bombs. So it's like Lenny Dykstra says fuck about 1,000 times in the 4-part show. And when you when you censor him and a bunch of other guys too, Keith Hernandez, they all drop F-bombs. And when you censor that out of it, it changes the whole. It's not nearly as real and gritty as it is because Dykstra his interviews are, dude, you'll be on the floor laughing.
Yeah.
It's the funniest shit you've ever seen, man.
Out there. Was Roger in it much?
Roger's not in it much, but he's in it when he pitched the 5 great innings in that huge game. Might have been the greatest World Series game. He's in a little bit, but the big stars in it are Keith Hernandez. Lenny Dykstra steals the character. He's so far, and he has abused this himself, man. But he was funny. Some of the things he says, oh my God. But it's 4 parts, and it's like, I mean, they could have just done it in 2 hour parts, so they just split it up into 4 1-hour segments. But my God, it's good stuff, man. It's so kind, and to see the spiraling and Strawberry and Gooden and all that, and Gooden missing their parade because he's doing coke with some people he didn't even know on Long Island, watching it on TV, going, this is a low point in my life, Just watching his teammates celebrate while he's in a coke den.
Can't get off the couch.
Yeah. I mean, it's remarkable, really. The whole thing. They do some history of the Mets and all that, and all leading up to it, how bad they were and everything. And they got great footage. Dude, the celebration that happened after they clinched the LCS in the World Series then, after they clinched the pennant, is remarkable. Or I think after they clinched, period, to get in. And the people stormed the field like they do at a college football game. The field is covered in people, and they're pulling up grass. Afterwards, the field was destroyed. Big squares of grass are pulled up. They pulled the home plate out of the dirt with like security and everything. Somebody there.
Tried to steal it, huh?
They did. They got it out. It was like with concrete underneath it, and they got it out. But it's unbelievable. None of that would happen today. And then they marched like when they had a chance to clinch, when they got close to clinching next time, they had like 80 horseback cops came out on the warning track before the 9th inning. Said, it ain't going to happen again. But it was amazing when they clinched what happened, how the celebration. But it's good stuff. That. But watch it on ESPN Plus though, and you'll see Lenny in his full glory.
I can't wait.
They're talking about how cocky, how much swagger they had. They'd go, we're going to go into your town. We're going to fuck your women. We're going to take you. We're going to, But Lenny was talking about how badass they all felt they were, how cocky they were. Yeah. And he said, yeah, I didn't mind walking around acting like I had a 15-inch bleep.
There's some really good photos of those guys too, chilling in the dugout. They look so hungover and they're smoking cigarettes and they're going to go out and win that.
Oh, they partied every night, man. Davey's like, as long as they got there ready to play. I mean, they were out every night on the road and in New York. I mean, New York was like hopping back then, you know, and they were in the clubs. I mean, they were down at one guy who I forgot who it was going to CBGB all the time. I mean, it was like
I wonder,
it's
you know,
crazy.
like people compare the different eras and, you know, everybody throws 99 now and you couldn't hang with these guys. And they look back at clips from the 80s and 90s and they want to say this guy couldn't play, you know, in today's game. But I'm like, that you couldn't hung with those dudes.
Oh, no.
And they still
Oh,
strap it
no.
on and play every day.
Exactly. It's
just
entirely different,
It's just
man.
a different world now. It's, you know, I mean, missing the parade because you're strung out, you know, from partying too hard the night before.
Yeah.
That wasn't a first time thing. He still went out and probably could have won. I mean, he probably, if Doc Gooden came up in today's game, he'd be throwing 104.
Oh yeah.
You know, eating healthy, doing all that stuff right. You know, I mean, it's mainly just the training's different. It's not necessarily.
He did what he did while spiraling on coke
at 40%. At 40% capacity, he was doing what he
straw
was doing
too, man.
Yeah, all of them.
They were talking. Oh my God, that team! They were talking about how Cash had blew up the team. You know, at the end, they had Ray Knight was getting old for her. Keith Hernandez was getting old. He was traded to the Cardinals eventually, but at the time, their 4 leaders. They showed them as 2 of them were old and they would be done within a few years. And 2 of them were addicts. Yeah. They were the guys in their early 20s, talking straw.
Guys just don't do that anymore, you know.
Ray Knight and Hernandez were the 2 leaders of the team, like keep guys in order, you know, get the fuck over here. And then Gary Carter was the only clean living guy of the bunch, the kid, you know, and he was for real. He was that clean, but it's fascinating. It really is. It's good stuff. I would highly recommend it.
I'm going to watch it tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, here we go. Here's a troubling stat to me. The Braves past 9 losses, 6 have been by 1 run and the others by 2 runs. And it underscores why this is not a good development. They put Luke Jackson on the paternity list yesterday, reinstated Chris Martin from the IL. Chris Martin had 1 rehab appearance. He had right elbow inflammation, pitched really poorly at the end before he went on the IL September 2nd. Had 1 rehab appearance at Gwinnett, clean inning, 2 groundouts, 1 flyout. But Luke has been their best pitcher lately, their best reliever. Yeah. I mean, he's pitched great. He's pitched great all season, but especially like the last 20 appearances, he's been unbelievable, man. So you hope that she has the baby in a hurry and he's here because he hasn't missed a game yet. And I think Darno was on the paternity list like 3 days. So it obviously just depends on how quick she gives birth. So, but then he's got to fly out here.
Sometimes it takes 3 days.
Right. And then he's going to have to fly out here. We're on the West Coast, not like at home when they were at home when Darno was on it. So we'll see. But Luke, they can't really afford to go along without him as well as he's pitched. That bullpen is, they had, you know, they've gotten beat up all year unfairly because the bullpen has been pretty solid for the last. Good. Yeah, but here's a typical case. So they lost 3-2 in 10 innings on Wednesday, second game of that Rockies series. Braves go 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position, and the bullpen comes in after it gives up 2 runs in 4 2/3. The bullpen goes 5 1/3 innings. They don't give up a single hit until the 10th inning. Mentor gives up a hit. You know, they start the inning with the runner at second base. Yep. So they lose. It's an unearned run. And everybody, you know, some people on Twitter are shitting on the bullpen. I'm like, are you kidding me? They went 5 1/3 innings without giving up a hit until that 1 hit by Mentor. They didn't give up.
That's the life of a bullpen guy.
It did as great. You did as well as you can possibly pitch, really, in that game. You know,
the bullpen and when you're talking about losing 3, 4, 5, 6 games by 1 or 2 runs, that's normally because your bullpen did do a great job. You know, unless there's some big comeback and you lose by 1, but most of the time it's, you know, I mean, there's got to be a spotlight on the offense in those games,
right? Because they're keeping you in it, giving you a chance, and you're not pulling it out like they used to.
At it, I mean, I heard Frenchie say it too. Was they had their opportunities to win a lot of those games, and the offense just got cold at a bad time.
Right. Yeah, they went from having about 6 or 7 guys hot to right now, the newcomers are really the guys that are producing. And, you know, and not that Freddie and Riley are really have been bad lately, but Freddie's been fine, but they're not doing what they were doing where, you know, every time Riley stepped up there, you felt like he was a threat.
Yeah.
You know, and Dansby too, he went from the hottest hidden shortstop in baseball for a month too, really struggling lately. I mean, you thought Dansby, you hoped he was past that streaky part, but he's scuffling lately again. So, I mean, where would they be without the newcomers? My God, man, they've kept them afloat.
Oh, that's been a game changer. Yeah, I mean, and like with Dansby, with these guys, that just for me, it always emphasizes how tough the game is. It's you fall into one bad habit, and you can go from being one of the best hitting shortstops in the game, and everything's working out, and you're getting big knots. To all of a sudden you just drop your shoulder a quarter inch, and you pop out to the warning track, or you swing and miss. That's what's so tough about the season, and why it's so hard to put together a good year and good numbers. And I mean, why I appreciate a guy like Freddie so much, because he finds a way to do it year in, year out. But those things change, man. And that's when you get into your slumps, and they just, when you have 2 or 3 or 4 guys get into a little funk like that at the same time, you lose some of the games that they're losing. And for what, a month and a half, they won all those games.
Yeah.
And that was a team we watched for 2 years. They won all those games. It seemed like every year somebody came up with the big hit, but they didn't have it the last week or so. And bullpen did great, but the bullpen's going to get blamed because you wind up giving up that L next to your name.
Yeah, you can't just do it all night. You can't go 15 innings putting up zeros waiting for the team to get a hit,
Right. But you might without that extra inning rule. I mean, that's kind of hurt them a lot this year.
Right. With that extra inning rule, you cannot do that. You could have gone 15 innings maybe before, but when you started with runner at second base, teams that know how to that go for one run, they just move the guy to third. Then you got 2 shots to get him in.
Yeah, and I feel like for some reason I don't ever feel when it's tied, I feel like the home team plays for one run, but I always feel like the home team in those situations is playing for a walk-off instead of just, let's just get the guy over, get him in, and then try to win the next inning. If we can get, you got to get lucky. Like I look at it as if we can get lucky and put up a 0 with a runner starting on second base next inning.
Yeah.
And just go back and forth with them, 1 run apiece, versus trying to walk them off that first inning. It's tough.
So you think the visiting team generally goes for, yeah.
And I think it's a big advantage because if they get that knock,
then the pressure's on you.
Yep. And so just getting to go first and establish that run, it puts a lot more pressure. Because then when you're the home team, you're thinking you got to get a couple knocks or a knock to tie it, but they always look at it as like they got to get this walk off.
Yeah,
guys put a lot more pressure on themselves when they have to hit versus if we don't get a knock, maybe our reliever puts up 0.
Yeah, I agree. That it's a whole new dynamic, and mentally, I think some guys are still trying to figure out how they approach it, and teams are figuring out. And the Braves have not done a good job with this rule for 2 years. Some teams go up there and bunt the guy over to third, or have guys that can hit to the right side of the infield and get that guy over to third. And it's automatic. Braves aren't one of those teams. They don't do it.
And I think, I would walk that first runner a lot and try to set up a double play because that's your best chance getting out of that. I don't see too many teams do it, but I guess, that's one of the numbers things is you got a better shot at taking 3 shots to get a hit and
analytics.
Get the guy in. There is a lot of strikeouts is the only reason I kind of get on that bandwagon a little bit is because if you get the sack fly and the next dude that comes up is not a contact guy,
right.
Get a punchy and you can pitch for a strikeout, run around third and 2 bases open. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but I think teams just go for the hits too often. I'd rather see a runner get on third and just try to make something happen.
The game, if you'd had this rule in the game 10, 15 years ago, it would have been automatic. Teams would have bunted the guy over or had a guy hit to the right side of the infield, got him over, and then had a sac fly and got him in. But those skills are not really prevalent in today's game.
Yeah. Well, you don't get paid for them.
No, a lot of guys can't just hit a sac fly on cue or even hit a ground ball to the right side of the infield and bring to get a guy over on cue.
Yeah.
Much less bunt. Nobody bunts.
Yeah. And you got to cut the hitters a little break because the stuff's definitely.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for
maybe
sure.
Pitchers aren't as accurate, but I would say it's going to be pretty tough to score up 98 versus 91.
Well, and the fact that they're not as accurate makes it even harder to bunt.
You might try to go throw one down and away, and he might hit you in the face. In
the face, you're squaring the bunt against the guy that throws 98 mile an hour, 93 slider and 100 fastball, and he's not always sure where it's going.
There's a lot more randomness in the game today.
So another troubling stat. Atlanta fell to 4-8 in extra inning games, which for a playoff team, that's not good, man. I mean,
Mm-mm.
most of the playoff teams have winning records in those situations, obviously. But 4-8 here, and here's the troubling part. It's not the bullpen. It's what they've done offensively in those spots. This is staggering. They've hit 163 with a 256 slugging percentage in extra innings. Think
it's
about that.
7 hits all year.
7 hits in 12 extra inning games. 4 of the 7 hits came in one game, May 8th, a 12-inning game against Philly. 3 hits in the other games.
So whatever it is about that, I mean, yeah, it's tough.
So you might want to think about manufacturing for sure. Doing whatever you can to get that one run.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mentor came in. Mentor's pitched a lot better lately. So the bullpen's okay right now. They could use Rich Rod to get on that kind of run that he was on when he first got over here, but he's had a couple of outings where he looks like he's getting back on good footing. But that hasn't been the problem lately. It's really hasn't been a pin.
What's so tough about it is Minter threw the ball well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they got the runner to third with 1 out, and then the Braves had to go infield in. The dude hit the ball hard up the middle, but it's a play a guy might make, if he's playing back and nobody starts the inning at second, you don't have to put the infield in. Giving up a leadoff double, as a reliever is almost, the mindset I was taught was just concede that run unless it's a 1-run game, but minimize the damage and keep it to that. Almost forget about that guy, and instead it's a go-ahead run every time to kick off the inning. I don't really know how I would fare in those situations because I almost always gave up 1 hit or 1 walk or something and then worked my way through an inning. There's no room for error at all.
So
Tough spot for reliever.
It's like giving up, like you said, a leadoff double. You're starting the inning like that.
My mindset every time I gave up a leadoff double was both, odds are that guy's scoring. Make some pitches, try to keep it to 1, unless it was a tie game or that was the go-ahead run. Then you start pitching for strikeouts and trying to get out of it. But you're so much better just accepting that guy's going to score and just making pitches and making sure it doesn't turn into a 2 or a 3 spot. But when it's a tie game and extras and he just starts there, that makes it really tough.
And here's the other one besides 4-8 in extra inning games. And this one is really, this is almost unfathomable. The Braves are 1-10 in games that were tied entering the 9th inning. Tied after the 8th inning. 1-10. I mean, Arizona, that's the worst in the majors. Arizona's the next worst, and they're 4-11. Braves have won 1 game like that this year that was tied entering the 9th inning.
They won them. They probably went 9-1 if it was, last 2 years before this.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
If you
a
go
reversal.
5 in those games, it's pretty much wrapped up right now.
It's a reversal of what they were, what they've been, their MO in the last few years. And the reason obviously is the offense. We went over this a few podcasts ago about how bad they've hit in late and close situations. The Braves with runners in scoring position, I know everybody harps on that. They're still 12th in the majors in that 258. They slipped a little bit. I mean, they're just ahead of the Dodgers at 259. They're 5th in OPS with runners in scoring position, 798. Again, just ahead of the Dodgers, 795. But Adam Duvall, that dude's been unbelievable with runners on base and with runners in scoring position. He's hitting 323 with an 1125 OPS with runners in scoring position.
Damn.
6th best OPS in the majors in those spots. But in late and close situations, the Braves, and this is where they were when I brought this up about a month ago, they are still last in the majors with a 188 average in late and close situations. It's hard to believe.
It's hard to do.
The D-backs are next lowest average at 197. Braves are tied for 26th in OPS in those spots, which you'd say, okay, yeah, they're not hitting for average, but they're hitting some bombs, so it's okay. No, they're 626 OPS in those spots. The only teams, they're just behind the Rangers, and the only teams that are worse than OPS in late and close, Tigers, D-backs, and Pirates. That's not a group you want to be in offensively.
Well, I guess the way you could look at it, though, is shit's got to even out, you'd
hope because you got 20 games.
If you're one of those guys, you got to figure we couldn't keep this up if we tried.
Yeah. And the problem is that they've had, it's kind of been across the board. Like all their good hitters that have been, great
Yeah.
in so many situations just aren't in those late and close situations. I don't know if this guy's trying to do too much. That's usually the case, guys feeling like, but you would never guess who the leader is on the team in OPS in late and close situations. I bet you wouldn't guess. Try.
Shit, I don't know, because you said I'd never guess.
Jock Peterson.
I might have guessed that, honestly, but you said I'd never guess it.
Yeah, so I threw you off. He's at 846 OPS late and close. That's 39th in the majors. They don't have anyone higher in OPS in those situations. And he spent, of course, half the season with the Cubs, more than half. The next highest OPS in late and close, Ozzie Albies, 772, which is 55th in the majors. Then you go to Jorge Soler at 770, and he spent half his season with Kansas City or more, 100 games. Austin Riley is at 230. He's at 236, 748 OPS late and close. Freddie Freeman, he's at 232 with a 721 OPS in late and close. Not what you would expect, man.
That'll level out.
Yeah.
I think
if not, maybe in the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying is I think once you get these guys to the playoffs too, they'll kick into another gear, because I'm not saying the regular season's a lull and they're trying to win the division still, but it'll be a different atmosphere once they get to the playoffs. But you got to kind of right the ship before then too, because those are some ugly numbers.
It explains though those numbers though, in games tied entering the ninth inning, and obviously extra inning, your record in extra innings. I mean, that explains it right there when you don't have anybody really breaking in those situations. By the way, Adam Duvall and Dansby Swanson are both near the bottom of the MLB qualifiers in late and close. Duvall.
I wouldn't have called that.
No, because the way Duvall's hit with runners in scoring position, you would think it would just carry over to other clutch situations late and close.
I feel like he hits a lot of big knocks in the third through fifth inning. Now that you say that, though, because it's normally like a 3-run homer, third, fourth, fifth, that
puts them ahead.
Just as important, opens the game up or gets them back in it. But yeah,
and
I would think Dansby is pretty clutch too.
Everybody has for years. It's like a fairly small sample size, but it's not that small. I mean, you're this deep in the season. Duvall's hitting 158 with a 548 OPS and 57 at bats late and close. Dansby's hitting 161 with a 540 OPS and 56 at bats in those situations. So anyway, we'll see, but it doesn't bode well for scoring a lot of runs and late after the seventh inning when you're in a close game when nobody's really excelling in those spots.
Good news, you got the bullpen to take the heat if they give up one.
And they will take the heat.
Yeah.
And you watch if our boy Luke gives up runs, they shit all over him if he has one bad outing. Here we go. That's the same old Luke I'm used to. Never mind that he's had a whole season where he's been good.
Yeah. That's just how it is as a reliever. I remember my mom used to hate Heathcliff Slocum. She just lost it every time he came in the game, whether he was good or bad. But that's the only reason I remember the relievers, because my mom just couldn't stand it. She thought he was going to blow it every time he came in.
Yeah.
And it's like when you get that tag on you where people feel that way about you, every time you do well, they just kind of breathe a sigh of relief and then watch the stars play. But every time you come in and blow it, it's like confirmation. It's like, I knew it. I knew he was going to do it. And it with Luke, I don't know. It's followed him around for a while. He's had some pretty good years. But I don't think it's going away.
I mean, he's having a career. It'll go away if he goes to another team.
Yeah.
It's a Braves thing now. I mean, and there's plenty of Braves fans that appreciate what he's done and have said it on Twitter and all that. But you look at his numbers, man. He's having one of the better years of any reliever.
Yeah. That's
in the league. His ERA is going to be up below 2 with another couple of good outings. He's right above 2 right now in ERA, and he's pitched almost 60 times.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, and then you go to a new team and you get off to a bad start. So it'll take 2 years to shake that. If you have a bad April with Boston, it's like that's just how it is as a reliever. You have to learn as a reliever to just do your job and know that your teammates appreciate you and not check in online too much.
Right. And I think he's good in that regard.
Yeah.
We'll get him on the podcast again, maybe before the season's over. After he's had a kid.
I wouldn't put that on him after having
Yeah,
a
that's
kid.
true. We might have probably missed our opportunity. This last start by Tukey, man, I don't know what to make of this season that he's having, but he had an opportunity when Smiley fell on his face, and they gave Tukey this 5th spot, and he's made 3 starts and struggled. And I think he's frittered away that opportunity to really nail that spot down. And I think they were going to turn to probably to Smiley, but somebody else was going to get that start Sunday if it had not gotten made unnecessary by the rain out. But they're going to need him during this. They're going to need a 5th starter during this road trip. So somebody's going to have to get the call. And Tukey is really, it's like Snit said, I always say if Tukey can get the ball over the plate and force swings, he's got a chance to be really effective, because you've talked about his stuff is so good.
It's so good.
But when he doesn't throw strikes and people can spit on it, it's like when they make him throw strikes and he doesn't do it, it can get ugly.
I think he just needs that go down in flames mindset, and that's what's tough when you're up and down and not establishing yourself, is you're questioning every start if it's going to be your last, so there's so much more pressure. I mean, that's what I've talked about in the past. It'd be great for him to be with a team that's rebuilding right now.
Yeah.
And him knowing I'm getting 5 more starts after this one. So when he gets 1st and 2nd, 1 out in the 3rd inning, and it turns into a 4 spot right now, it's him trying to be perfect and not give it up, to stay on the team, stay in the rotation. There's so much more riding on it for him than if you're with a team that's out of it and they're just like, look, man, you're getting 4 more starts. Learn how to get out of this, take your lumps. It's really tough development wise, the position he's in.
Yeah.
But you have to figure it out. Nobody feels sorry for you. You're getting a shot to pitch in the major leagues
with a contender, with a division leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tuesday's game, he gave up 2 homers and 4 runs in the first 5 innings. And he came out after giving up the 2nd of those homers with none out in the 5th. So he didn't get any outs in the 5th.
Yeah.
And they lost 5-4. So he's had 3 September starts, pitched a total of 10 innings, went 3 innings in the other 2. 10 innings, given up 12 hits, 12 runs, 9 of them earned, 7 walks, 4 homers. Not good.
No. And that's another one of those things too, is like, if you wind up trading him and he goes off, he goes to Texas, or he goes to, somewhere to East and West Coast, he goes to San Francisco and has this crazy year, he might not have turned into that guy here, because it's also hard to shake that "here we go again" tag that gets placed on you. Like Kyle Wright's got it on him. If Kyle Wright comes up and has 2 good starts, everybody's still just waiting for him to fail. And I feel like Tukey's gotten pretty deep into that territory.
Lucas Sims was in that.
Sims was in it. He went somewhere else and he messed up, started pointing fingers at the Braves and saying they didn't, it's like
they can't develop pitchers. Yeah.
You don't need to say that, but he's a good dude, from what I've read, and been around him. But, with Tukey, he's creeping into that territory where as soon as he has that one bad start, everybody's going to expect him to have another bad one. And what you can't let happen is you can't start thinking that yourself. You have to be able to shake it off, say that was a bad one, make the adjustments you need to make and keep trucking. But it's really hard when you're worried about getting sent down. You're worried about losing your rotation spot. I think, guys just put so much pressure on themselves to be perfect in his position, and it's tough for them.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it so many times. A lot of times it takes a fresh start. And I mean, we've even seen it happens where guys end up signing a minor league contract with somebody else. Guys that are out of options go somewhere with a minor league contract. There's no pressure. They just go and they're pitching in AAA on a minor league deal, having a great year. Then they get called up and boom, it's a different guy. I mean, they're not pitching with that pressure, that yoke of, expectations and of being a former 1st round pick and all that. I think he still feels that. He's a former 1st round pick. And here we are 7 years into his pro career. And he really hasn't established himself at the big league level yet, even though he's had 2 or 3 games here, where he's looked dynamite, like a 1st round pick.
Well,
too many other games. Yeah.
Every time he's locked in, the swings and misses he gets, his fastball beats guys. His fastball's not straight. It's moving all over the place, which, makes it harder to throw strikes. But almost every one of his starts is, I think, is when I'm watching it, I'm like, this is going to be dictated by how patient the other team is here.
Right.
If they make him work, they can get him. But if they come out and try to be aggressive, his stuff's going to beat him. And they have to make him grind. And that's another lesson that I don't think you can learn in AAA, because nobody can handle your stuff. So they have to cheat
Right.
and they have to do more. And you wind up catching a lot of the breaks that he's not catching in the majors.
Yeah, that's the fallacy that people have when guys go down AAA and all of a sudden they're pitching great or hitting great. And go, it's just like he's figured some things out in AAA. It's time to bring him back. I'm like, that doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't. BMAX got the best quote on that of all time. I think it was 2009. We were in St. Louis and we were talking about AAA this and AAA that, and we were going to call some guy up and everybody's excited about him. I can't remember the story, but you know, this same type of conversation. And he's like, yeah, but you can't learn that lesson in AAA. He goes, people think, you know, it's AAA is AAA, and then there's bottom, you know, 4A is the major leagues. It's like 4A, 5A. He's like, Albert Pujols isn't playing 4A or 5A. He's playing 75A, you know, and so you don't run into guys like without a higher league to get called up to. Mike Trout, these guys in the middle of the order, Joey Vottos, that can just completely just wreck you.
Yeah.
You know, you face one dude in AAA that's in the same boat you're in. He's trying to get to the majors in the middle of the lineup. And then you got the 7, 8, 9 journeymen, you know, so you don't face like a whole team of guys that are playing 5A, 9A, 12A, 16A, 75A. You just face 3A and maybe 4A. And so you have to be in the majors to learn a lot of these lessons. And that's what makes it tough is you got to be here to do it. But if the team's trying to win, you fail, you go back and play against that lesser competition. And people think you figured it out when maybe you just went to an easier league.
Yeah. 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 No doubt. It can be frustrating for everybody involved.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see where the Braves turn for that number 5, but there's not a lot of good options like there used to be. You know, when you had some guys on the rise or that were all pitching well, that kind of thing.
And there's not the roster spot, you know, to have Moeller, Davidson, guys just waiting. You know, you throw Tukey out there for 2 innings. If he gets in any trouble, he gets yanked.
Yeah,
the guy gets to come in and try to clean it up and maybe earn his spot. There's not that tryout roster spot to have to see if somebody could contribute.
Yeah, I think they might be better off doing it as a bullpen game because there's only 19 games left. It's not like you're gonna have to do a lot. You don't have to do it a couple times. They might be better off doing it that way, you know?
Yeah.
You know, whether that's run Smiley out there and if he struggles at all, get him out of there, or, you know, might end up be what they have to do, which they've got at one extra reliever right now, you know, so.
Or two. Noah's looked good. Noah's been he's been throwing the ball well.
Yeah, he has. I think you can tell the difference in that he doesn't have quite the stamina he had before, so he kind of falters maybe in that 4th, 5th inning. But the stuff is there. He just doesn't maintain it as long as he did before he got hurt.
Yeah,
but he's still got a few weeks to get it together before.
Even if you can get a solid 5 out of him in the playoffs, you got extra off days. You can go to the pen earlier.
I like the rotation. I like the rotation.
Good about his spot.
Yeah, and Ian Anderson and Fried have both gotten some rest and that kind of thing. So nobody's showing signs of fatigue. So just that 5th spot's the one that's troubling. But you don't have to use it a couple more times. So we'll see. But all right, we got Giants starting tonight here in San Francisco. 3 games here, then 4 in Arizona, then 3 in San Diego.
Need to clean up in Arizona.
They better. San Diego's not playing well lately either, but we'll see.
No, but they're tough, and that's a tough place to go.
Tough place to go. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, 7:55 is real. We will talk again on Monday or Tuesday.
Sounds good.
We're out.
Nice stuff.